Welcome back to the Casting Cost cEDH podcast. I'm Blake.
I'm Chase, and today we're joined by another special guest.
Hi, I'm Freedom Waffle, Evan Pierce. Thanks so much for having me, guys. I really appreciate it.
Heck yeah, dude. Dude, I've wanted to talk to you for a hot minute. Like, I played Kinnan one time. It was like the first time I ever played Kinnan was actually on a game that we did, and it was your list, and the list was sick, and I was like, I have to talk to this guy now, and so I'm very excited for this conversation.
I love it. I love to hear it. Well, I'm sure we'll be talking a lot of Kinnan today, I hope.
Yeah, at times, because consistently throughout the year, you have been kicking ass on this deck, and I think like
Kinnan's broken, man.
Hasn't that pretty much been the deck you've been on like ever since getting into
The bans.
cEDH and things like that?
No.
Or, no, really? Okay,
Definitely not. This has been like my third deck that I've really dove into. The main deck that I really started getting into like the overall scene was Dargo Thrasios, like 3 years ago now maybe. And that was like when online tournaments were going crazy. That was going really well. Dockside broken. And that deck was really fun to brew and play. Then I switched to Blue Farm because it was the best deck. So I played Blue Farm for like a lot of tournaments. And then the bans hit, and I'm like, okay, Kinnan seems so good right now, but I wanted to kind of take a break, so I played a bunch of Shorikai, and then that's kind of actually where all the clone Ristic tech came in, and then I switched to Kinnan, and I've been on that since.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it's been a journey.
Well, I will definitely find a way to derail this conversation and get into the weeds. So before we get into all that, Chase, do you have any housekeeping things you want to mention?
Yeah, just as always, like and subscribe. Go on ahead, and if you haven't done it already, hit the subscribe button and go on ahead and like the video. We haven't even gotten into the conversation just yet on it, and it's going to be good because we're talking about Kinnan. We're here with Freedom Waffle. Like, just do those things. If you haven't, I don't know what you're doing. Also, join our Discord, join our Patreon, like get on there, like, help out the channel in those ways, because we continuously have discussions in our Discord with other people, and have good talks within that Patreon. We're still trying to figure it out from time to time what we are going to do, but we are fleshing those things out, and it's not much. If you want ad-free videos, those coming out on Sundays now. Thank you to Blake getting it out a day early, and I'm still gonna figure out what my part of it's going to be, but we will get there eventually. Also, if you are in the state of Kentucky, join the Kentucky cEDH Discord. The links for all that stuff is going to be down below in the description. Also, and I'm just going to throw this out there, this weekend there is going to be an event in Paducah, Kentucky at I believe, I'm gonna have to look. Well, I'll talk about it at the end as well, just so that way we can kind of get into the discussion. But if you are in that area, come out to that event as well. And the link for that event will be down there below as well.
And like we mentioned, we're probably going to be talking about plenty of Kinnan today. And if you want to actually pick up Evan's list, go to Man of All Proxies, use our affiliate link, and you actually can find his list on the website, on the Hall of Champions. So go play his list if you're interested in playing no bad cards.
And I think I'll get 5% too, so do it.
There you go.
Yeah, dude.
I think that's how that worked.
Absolutely. And Blake, what is the code again?
I'm gonna fuck this. No. I know it's gonna look probably backwards for y'all, but on the actual thing, it's gonna look right. Or we'll do both. We'll do both, and then whichever one's right is right. Use code triple C.
Code triple C. That's so funny.
But no, Evan, like you said, man, I'm really glad that we're getting to chat with you tonight. But obviously, just so that way you can let people know like who you are, like who are you, and then obviously like what have you done in the cEDH space?
Yeah, so I've been playing cEDH for, I don't know, maybe 4 years now, maybe five, something like that. And I've loved it. Once I started traveling to tournaments, it's just like got me hooked. So I definitely a tournament grinder. I play in tons of tournaments this year. I'm going to all kinds of them. So if there's a big event, especially by like Excalibur or Land Go or like Fishbowl, I'll probably be at those. So yeah, you'll find me at tournaments. I do photography at tournaments. So like for work, I'm a cinematographer and photographer, and so I go out to tournaments and take photos. So if you come to these big events, hopefully I'll get some shots of you. I've made Learn cEDH, that website. We're actually working on redoing that, which hasn't been announced yet, but little kind of teaser there. But some more things to come there. I'm part of MTG Basics, which is a YouTube channel. Check us out. We do streaming at events, and that's one of the things we've been working on a lot recently. We've been doing some trying to up the game in cEDH casting and streaming. And yeah, if you need cEDH coaching, you can reach out on Discord or my website, which is freedomwaffle.com. But yeah, thanks so much for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
I do absolutely. I do want to ask because I've always wondered this. Where did the nickname Freedom Waffle come from?
I wish it was a good story, but it is not. I was younger and I just needed a gamer tag, and that's what came to mind. It was not like the Xbox random generated or anything, but I was like, I just needed to think of it, and those are the words that fit together, and it stuck. So here it is. And that's been my name for like ever. I use that for like my landscape photography before I even played cEDH. It's been, yeah, just like the name that stuck.
That's
I
awesome.
wish there was a good story.
No, hey, that's fair, dude. That's hilarious. Yeah. I used to have like I think everybody has something like that where I had like whenever I think it was like forever ago, I made like a RuneScape account and I needed like, I'd have an email and I just hit like one of the auto generates and it gave me it was like
Yeah.
Whirlpool 58. So for the longest time, anytime I had something, it was just that. And so everybody thought I was
Yep.
talking about like the dishwashers and the appliances and stuff like that.
That's so funny. Yeah, my email is still some Pokemon reference. It's terrible. It's so hard to change those, man. They take forever.
I I was curious though. So we've had the opportunity to talk with like other good players in the space. Like we've talked with Zach Adler. We've had the chance to talk with like
Mhm.
Notorious. We've talked with like Max Sternberg and some like other people. What do you feel like makes you just so consistent in cEDH? Like you are somebody where if you see your name on, like if you enter an event, it's pretty much like a guarantee. It's like, okay, you're going to see Freedom Waffle in top 16. So like what makes you
I
just
wish it
so
was a
consistent?
guarantee, but usually.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I'm pretty sure. Like, I don't know. I've thought about this a lot, and it's hard to give you like a certain answer. But I think there's definitely a combination, and I think some of it that makes it a lot easier for me is just like personality and just like who you are. That helps a lot with the politics. Not that you can't like, you know, everyone can become a good politiker, but I think that like I got lucky that my personality lent itself to that right off the bat. So I think that was way made just like the learning curve much easier for cEDH. I'm a very like analytical person, and so I love just like logic and just like, you know, challenges, puzzles and stuff like that. And so like, you know, just I think, you know, when you're in a game, just like focusing on making sure that you are playing optimally, not just like, you know, taking, you know, whatever plays available, but really focus on optimization. I think that's a super helpful thing. But of course, just practice. So, I mean, you just have to get the reps in. I don't practice as much as I used to now that I've played a lot. But back, I think when I was doing, I used to have a deck tracker that now is replaced by Play Nice MTG. Those guys are awesome. You should check it out. PlayNiceMTG.com. They have like, so it's where you can track your games. But before that came out, I had tracked like, I think it was like what, 2,000 games on my tracker. And I think that was only for like a year or so. So I was playing like a ton. And this is also, I played a lot on Magic Online. I still play Magic Online, not cEDH. It's a terrible experience, honestly. But I was able to like play tons of games. It's way easier to jam. And so, yeah, got tons and tons of reps in. And so, really, a lot of it is just like, yeah, once you get that practice, of course, you need to practice the politics and stuff. But like, if you're someone who's like focused on like trying to get better, spending that time and focused on like thinking outside the box with your politics, like, you know, you're gonna get there. I think that's the big thing. But yeah, it definitely took a long time, and the personality helped get the jump start on it. And that's like, you know, I randomly went to some tournaments and started winning, and I was like, wait, this is so cool. And then obviously I spent way more time in it. And then you just get, you know, better and better. And I think there's a lot of variance in the game, but you know, just with that practice, you can minimize it a lot.
I think it's really interesting that you mentioned like the like play nice and tracking your games and like just being intentional like whenever you're playing the games.
Mhm.
I recently, so Ya from That's a Good Card, we're actually gonna go and
Yeah.
record some games with them after this, which will be very fun too. But
Nice. I love ya. He's awesome.
he's so nice. But he actually introduced me to Play Nice, and so then I started tracking my games because
Cool.
like my main deck for tournaments and stuff is Zur, like Zur the Enchanter.
Yeah.
And so like I have started tracking like my games and stuff, and then also like I'll track my tournament games. There's a
Yeah.
lot of data that just the like that spits out to you. Is there anything in particular that you look at whenever you're tracking like your games and stuff on Play Nice?
Yeah, and so Play Nice is actually based off that tracker I made originally. They improved it a ton, and like one of the things that I was doing when I was building that in the first place was just trying to like think through like how can I get like useful data? Because there's a lot of data you can get that's just not that helpful. Quickly for me personally, I learned that like the turn the game ends is often not that important to like actually have these revelations. I think the mulligans are like something that I could never actually implement in mine that they implemented, and that's huge. So like seeing what you're keeping and the win rate of the cards that you keep in hand. So like if I keep a Mystic Remora, does my win rate go up? I think that was really helpful. Also, like learning what combos you're losing against. And what combos you're like winning with can be helpful. I think that was when I was when I was main decking Dargo Thrasios. This is when I really was using the tracker the most. And the yeah, like I think one thing that it taught me was I had, I think, too many win conditions. And eventually I started, and this has happened with multiple decks that I've definitely played, is like you end up cutting win conditions, cutting your plan B and C or C and D, whatever. And because you realize you just like if I'm winning with like this combo 5% of the time, like maybe it shouldn't be in the deck, right? Like you want to minimize those dead cards. And of course, this is also like, everyone knows that Mystic Remora and Ristic Study are just some of the best, if not the best, cards in the format. And but you can like reaffirm that, and I think that's something that like uh over time has just lent to my deck building being so focused on those draw engines, because when you see the stats like, okay, I'm winning like 20% higher in games that I have these cards than not, like I should be mulliganing aggressively for these cards, and I should build my deck around getting them into play, and change my gameplay too. So I think it's like those kind of things. You definitely, there's not like with those tracking with tracking, you're not going to have like necessarily a um I think big easy revelation. You have to think like deep on it, right? One of the things, I guess one last thing that was really helpful is when you iterate your deck. You can iterate your deck version on Play Nice, and you can compare win rates from the latest version to the previous. And so you have to get a lot of games for this to matter. But once you do, you can see like, okay, I cut these cards. I played 100 games on each. Like that's a lot, but my win rate went up by 5%. Okay, that was probably some good changes. If it went down, maybe you should go back, right? So those kind of things can really help inform your deck building, and of course gameplay too.
No, I find that like super fascinating. I think that like I said, you can sometimes get like the analysis paralysis if you're looking at that stuff and then you just don't know what specifically to check out. Or sometimes even I found like whenever I first started tracking the games, I wasn't paying enough attention to like what cards that were in my opening hands, or like
Yeah.
again like
Mhm.
what cards what cards I was winning with, and so I started getting like more
Right.
intentional with that. I think that stuff is that actually makes a lot of sense. I think that that's even going to influence the way that I track my games. But
Yeah,
what
totally.
what like do you use those types of tools and stuff like that whenever you're coaching people? Like do you find yourself
Mhm.
like having like if you're say you're doing a session with somebody, do you have them go and like track a bunch of games and then break down that data with them as well?
Yeah, I mean, not always. I think that's something that, definitely is more helpful with returning coaching students. I think one of the main things that is really helpful, and I think one of the biggest like ways that coaching can help people like just across the board, is looking at mulligans. And so the mulligan and tracker is really good. I think recently I was doing a coaching session, and they tracked their hands. I don't think it was with Play Nice, but they'd screenshotted a bunch of hands, and recorded if they won or lost. And like I looked at the hands, and every single time they won, they had any game plan in the hand. It didn't even have to be a good one. They just like something that progressed them and played the game. And every time they lost, it was something that like required, top decking really well and didn't have a game plan in hand. And like that's already so huge, like such an easy way for me to be like, okay, this is what we should focus on. Like you need to be making sure you're mulliganing for these. These are bad hands, these are good hands, and these are the medium hands that you can keep, right? Like that kind of thing is super helpful. I think like the other stats, it just depends. Usually it's not like I don't usually focus too hard on them other than the mulligans, I'd say. But yeah, of course, like doing a play tester as well is great. And sometimes gameplay recordings can be good too. It's the only issue with that, of course, is it takes a lot of time to go through. Um, but yeah, mulligans is definitely number one.
I like that you brought up the recordings there because I feel like even on an app like Play Nice, one of the
Mhm.
things that is difficult to kind of track, and I'm gonna circle back to something you had talked about, is the actual politicking piece. Like I don't know if you could
Yes,
necessarily record that on the app, but at least recording your games, like just either through the
totally.
streaming or however you're doing it, you could kind of judge or kind of assess yourself in a way where it's just kind of like, oh, maybe I should have said this instead, or I should have done this. And I guess that kind of leads into some of the discussion for tonight on like your take on politics. And you've already kind of brought
Mhm.
up some good points because I feel like there's, like you were talking about, like just being able to allow your personality to kind of shine in a way
Totally.
at the table. Like I know that when we talked to Max a couple of weeks ago, like he kind of talked about this idea of like rapport building. Zach has talked about that quite a bit. I know Zach has talked about just having empathy and utilizing that at the table. I think and all. I feel like those are things that are pretty consistent across the board of players that are playing at the level that you're at. So I don't know,
Right.
like I guess my question to you is like in regard to politics then, what would you say your style of it would be?
Yeah, yeah, no, that's a good question. I think that yeah, absolutely, building rapport is really important. I do agree with that. I think like right off the bat, you want to make sure, and this is like more than just getting a benefit. Everyone's just having a better time if you just start off with like, niceties and small talk and just like are enjoying yourself. Like those games are just more fun. And that also just means that you're like most of the time people are willing to work with each other more, right? You're more willing to make deals. You're not annoyed by your opponents. I think that's the nice thing about cEDH. It is a social game. And so that part definitely like it plays a part in it, right? And so I would say the way that I approach politics is you like I think the goal for every game is to make mutually beneficial deals with each of my opponents, right? And focus or not focus on making them only with one player, unless like that's the only other player behind. The idea is you're going to get incremental advantage when you make each of these deals, and if you can make them, and your opponents will too. Maybe each opponent like might get a little more advantage than you are from every deal you're making. Like for example, let's say like, hey, give me the wish call, I'll give it back, right? That kind of deal. Like they're getting double tutor, you're getting a single tutor. But uh, you know, if you do that now, like make another deal with each of your other opponents, then eventually you're going to have like you're just going to come out on top in those games. And so I think like making sure you're aligning yourself with the motivation of your opponents. So like, giving yourself basically putting you and whoever you're talking to and making a deal with, putting you both ahead is really important. So I think that's like if I'm making deals, that's the way I'm looking at it. I'm trying to make sure that I'm not like, throwing to the person who's the farthest ahead and giving us both an advantage and then switching it up later. The other part of this is stopping your opponents from winning the game and working together in that regard. And I think like this is where a lot of give and take happens. Like oftentimes I might need to go first in a counterspell war, and a lot of this is just based on like threat assessment at the table. Like if I'm in a good spot, like I'll go first and I'll try to get you to use your counterspell second. But I'm not just going to go, like I'm not going to force you to use all your counterspells or just I'm not going to use all of mine. It's definitely like a big give and take game. And so I think those like the combination of those two is really important. The only other thing that I think is can be really helpful, and this is not necessarily this is more useful for people who are not like really really good at politics, like against opponents who are not amazing at politics, is working throughout the game to talk through threat assessment. And the idea is you want to be honest about your opponent's threat assessment and honest about your own threat assessment, but not be the one bringing up your own threat assessment. So what I mean by that is I'm going to point out like when a Magda player has win on board in 3 turns and then 2 turns and then 1 turn, or a Sisse player, or Blue Farm has this many cards in hand. But I'm not going to point out that, I have 10 mana and heuristic study, right? That's their job to point out. And that's why like you can get advantage from that because, eventually you're going to like bring the attention towards these other threats at the table. You're not denying that you're a threat, but because people are focused on that and thinking about how to stop them, they might not be thinking about how to stop you or even just like one part of your plan. And that can like lead you to getting a window to win the game. And so there's always more like complexities. I think getting creative with politics, thinking outside the box in order to like make a deal happen can be really useful. But I think those, like, aligning with motivation of your opponents and making deals with each, um, that's like that's a big one. So
Yeah, I think that was a really good piece of advice that Ian gave me. So I've done coaching with like several different people now in the space, just because I wanted to get a feel for like how their coaching is, but also to get a feel for what coaching is like in the space.
totally.
And I think that was something that Ian taught whenever we were doing a session, was this idea of like being not getting like overly defensive. Like if somebody points out that you have, like
Yeah.
you have some advantage, and it's obviously very apparent, or like you are starting to look like a threat. This idea of being like, yes, like, hey, like I totally hear you, like, confirming what they're saying, or like making them feel heard. Like, hey, I totally understand what you're saying, and I definitely understand like where you're coming from this, but also like there are other threats at the table. This is what I'm seeing from my
Yes.
perspective. And then obviously, like, you let them make the decision. Like, don't just, if they make a decision and they decide you're the bigger threat, like, don't obviously just like blow up on them and lose it. But like, just kind of saying
Of
like,
course
hey,
not. Yeah.
like verify what they're saying, like, make them feel heard, make it known, but also kind of like you can guide them towards like that deflecting, like guide them where you want them to be pointing their removal or their counters or whatever it may be. And then obviously the decision they make is going to be the one they make. But that was really helpful. I felt like like at first I would get a little bit more defensive. I'd be like, no, like I know you think I'm a threat. I'm not a threat. I'm not a threat. This person's a threat. And then that was like a tool that was really beneficial.
Totally.
Do you like I'm trying to think of like how to say it. So when we talked to Notorious, he mentioned this about you, but he said that like every time you play a game with somebody, you immediately like you'll sit down and you'll like shake everybody's hand and you'll be like, hey, like I'm Evan. Like you introduce yourself to
Yeah.
everybody.
Yeah.
Do you think like what is the intention? I guess obviously I know that obviously like it makes sense to also like you're about to play a social game, so introducing yourself. But like, do you have intentionality, I guess, behind doing those sorts of things?
A little. I mean, like I was saying earlier, it's just like a social game. I think there's two things there. It's just like, number one is you're going to enjoy yourself more, and number two, like, yeah. Again, people are more willing to work with you if you're not an asshole, if I could say that here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh, and
Oh,
so,
dude, you say whatever the fuck you want to. It don't matter about us.
good, good, good. So like, no, there's not like you're not trying to like trick them into trusting you. That's not like what you're doing, and you're not trying to break trust in the game. That's not it. But like, I think days are going to go better for you when you're having a good time. And like, again, like, people aren't gonna like, that's also like, spite playing is a thing in cEDH. It doesn't happen all the time, but like, again, if you're being super rude to people, like, they might pack the negation your soul ring. I don't know, like, like, there's that matters, right? Don't let that happen. So yeah, I don't know, I think it's also, the cEDH community is very small, and so getting to know people is, that's just a thing that's great because you're probably going to see a lot of them again.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of something I was about to touch on. And I don't know if you feel this way going into a game or not, but like as well known as you are, or Notorious, or Max, or Zach, or Kellen, or whoever we've kind of talked about on the
Yeah.
channel, like, I'm sure going into the game and introducing yourself and things like that, you not only are you establishing that rapport, but I'm sure you've had games where it's like, oh, this is Evan. This is Freedom Waffle. Like, we need to watch out for this person. And so I feel like when you do that, though, when you introduce yourself and you sit down at a table and like you're just like shooting the shit and like maybe having jokes and like
Mhm.
being able to, I guess, kind of show the table like, hey, I'm human. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
am trying to have fun just as much as you all are. Like, yeah, I'm here to win, but we're gonna have a good time doing it. I feel like that is something that like kind of diverts that attention off of you just taking that simple pregame action really and doing that.
Totally. Yeah, and I think that, like, back before I was more known in the community, it's like there was definitely obviously it's easier to go into the radar, and so I think that like politics have had to change for me a little bit. And I think the main thing, like, that like, people aren't gonna ignore me, right, in a game for sure. Um, and that's where and that's where you could just like stick to your logical deals, working with opponents to stop those win conditions. Like I was saying, those two things that they don't really have anything to do with people respecting you, like, as like trying like respecting your threat assessment, right? And so I think if you are making a deal that benefits both of you and doesn't win either of you the game right there, like, that's just always a good thing to do. And more, that's, I think you should always be looking to make those types of deals, no matter who you are. And so, yeah, I think yeah, again, like that's also part of why I can't deny threat. Like they're looking at it. They're like, I know what your deck does. I know you win games. So if I'm drawing cards, I'm like, yeah, I could definitely win the game. And and this is the other thing I was actually going to say is a lot of the time the way to like deflect this threat in a meaningful way that will like actually the only way of deflecting honestly when you are a threat is making a deal not to win or making a deal to like put yourself a little bit behind, basically to put yourself back onto parity. Because if everyone's just trying to blow you out the whole game, you're going to lose every game. There's no point in that. Like, and sometimes if you have the most insane start, it's not like 1v1, like you have three opponents, like you don't want to be 3v1ing. You want to be just making sure you're still living. And so like in that game. So I think yeah, that's definitely a really good tactic to use.
No, I think that that is I think that's very fascinating. Like, do you feel like it's gotten harder? I get, because obviously I know you said like the politics changed, but do you feel like it's gotten harder to win games now that you are more well known in the space? Or do you feel like people tend to listen to your
Yeah,
assessments better?
I mean, I think it depends on who it is. So yes and no. I mean, I think I also like have just gotten a lot more experience as I've gotten more known in the space. So I think that's part of it, right? So it's like kind of parallel that graph of how hard it is to win and how good I've gotten has like gone, up a little bit together. Just I I still make plenty of mistakes, but I hopefully make less than I used to, right? So I think that like that's a big part of it. But yeah, I don't know. I think um, you just gotta make sure. Like some people will target you. That is what it is. But I haven't had it be too much of an issue. So
I am curious, like, just so obviously, like after earlier in the year, like when we had the crazy like 11-hour game, and everybody just
yeah,
started talking about like I feel like there was this huge movement or wave where people were like almost anti-politic, or they were like anti-yap. Like they were like, no, 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 we're not. I'm not making deals anymore at the table. I'm not politicking. How do you, I guess, navigate those games? Like if you're just setting at a group with like people that don't want to politic with you, how do you get, I guess, your point across, or how do you start to warm them up into politics? Like whenever you're meeting so much of that like pushback.
I mean, I think you got to meet them where they're at is really what it is. Like you're gonna, and actually that's always going to be the case. Some games you're going to be able to politic way more than other games, and a lot of the times in the Swiss there just isn't quite as much there aren't quite as many politics happening and as many deals happening as top 16. Because in top 16, most of the time it's people who are super willing to politic, and I think like this also like affects the complexity of deals. Like you know I was actually just on Zach's podcast. We were talking about like how he's like, I'm going to start bringing contracts to games where people need to sign here and make sure we know the deal. And it's like in top 16, people are basically making contracts, but in the Swiss, it's like, okay, I'm not going to win on my next turn. Leave it at that. You don't want it too complicated because you don't want to get annoying. People don't want to hear it, and so yeah, like you're definitely going to measure that. Also, I think you that's where you just have to get a lot more intentional with when you're speaking when people don't want to politic. You just only at the times that really matter do you have to make these deals, um and you just got to leave it at that. Sometimes and often a way to do this is like maybe they'll blow out your board state a little bit, and that's how you're under the radar. You're like, okay, I'm blown out, like it'll take me a while to get back, and then you don't really need to politic when you're rebuilding because no one's messing with you anyway, you know what I mean? So like that can it really it's so cEDH is such a complex game, so it obviously depends on the people in the board state. So
Yeah, I always feel so bad because it was this same problem was happening when we were talking to Max. Like I would ask questions and he was like, "There's so much context that matters to this question." I was like, "I understand." I was
yeah,
like, "So it is like, I feel like that's one of the things that makes this game so complicated is that there
yeah,
is a lot of like variance and there's obviously the
totally.
luck and stuff to it. I'm guess like I don't know. This just popped into my head, but like, I guess how do you mitigate that fact that like, because again, like you are super consistent. Do you think that politics helps you like get over some of like the variance and the luck that there is, or like, do you?
Yes.
Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry, I was about to ramble. Go for it.
No, 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 no. I didn't mean to cut you off, but
No, no, no. You were good.
yeah,
I needed to
absolutely.
stop there, or else it was going to continue to just.
Please,
Yeah.
please do. Please. I encourage it as much as you possibly can.
That's so funny. Yes, absolutely. I mean, like, what's probably the biggest example is um someone points his swords to plowshares at your Kinnan, and you are like, and there's like a Sisse on board. I mean, Magda Sisse are really good examples of decks that are like on board threats you must answer. Like those are games where I'm like, whoa, like, I'm not on any big flips. Like, what, like, maybe save this swords, or like they, point it somewhere else, just wait on it. Like, you could still kill my Kinnan, or like sometimes you make a deal like, hey, I won't like fight over this later, even if I draw a counter spell, but I just like don't want to lose the game. Um, I think because the whole like takesies backsies rule in cEDH, I hate it, but like you should use it, right? Like, if someone is casting a spell, you can immediately jump in there and be like, hold on. Like if they're making a misplay, like genuinely like one that just doesn't make sense. Like maybe the case is they're Swords to Plowsharing my Kinnan, and my hand is like 3 lands, right? Show them your hand right away. Be like, hold on, here's my hand, right? Like, I'm doing nothing. Save this removal spell. Here's the information you wanted to know. Like, now you know. I don't know. Things like that can really be helpful in the Swiss, because I think sometimes, like, threat assessment in cEDH is really hard. It requires knowing what your opponent's hands are and predicting that, and knowing their decks and knowing the meta, all kinds of things, right? And so that's going to go wrong for people in the Swiss more than top 16 and top 4. And so, being ready to jump in and saying like, hold on, like I really am not like ahead in this game, gives you outs to win later. And also like a lot of this is just like a lot of politics that like really make you consistent is making sure you don't lose the game. It's not about winning the game. It's not about giving yourself a window. It's just saying like, I need to keep playing the game. That's all it is. And so, yes, I think that is like honestly one of the most important things. Ian is really good at that. Like if you were just talking about him, so
Well, and something I couldn't help but think about it, and you just brought up the meta there, and like the idea of even like, just kind of trying to survive. And the
yeah,
reason I guess I was thinking about this, and I was thinking about it as you were kind of discussing things earlier, like, has your style of politics had to change because of the turbo meta that we've been in? Like, weren't you in like a recent event where it's like top 4 was like you and like 3
yeah.
Ral or
It
some shit
was
like
it
that?
was it was Timna Dargo, Atali Timna Dargo. Not in that order, but yes, and I was fourth.
So
Yeah.
it's like your fourth seat in that position
Yep.
against these
Mhm.
turbo decks, and you're just trying to survive, is what it feels like. I feel
I
like in a
didn't,
pod
by the
like
way.
that.
I didn't survive. But yes. Absolutely. So yeah, I mean, in that case, I was going fourth, and every single mulligan, they all got to choose their hands. So first 7, decides if they're keeping, and then I decide last. While they're deciding on their mulligans, I flipped up every counterspell in my hand and left it face up without saying anything. Every single mulligan, and I mulled to 3, so it didn't work out. But it definitely like affects their mulligans, because if they like think I'm keeping a mindbreak trap, Atali's like, oh, I should not go turn one Atali pass, like that, or like just ramp into Atali, I'll lose, right? And so I think that kind of thing is helpful. I think in general, ironically, like, yeah, I mean, showing counter spells, being ready to like offer a draw, or just like keeping them face up to like not have the first person push get blown out, so you get to save it and then no one pushes. That's really helpful. In general, though, I think turbo pods for me are often like less politics, because like it's either like you just have to jam early and hope you race them, is a lot of the time
Yeah.
what the case is.
Yeah.
And
No,
then if you have interaction, then you can find a window to talk and try to save the game. But oftentimes, you just gotta jam and hope for the best.
yeah. And I feel like I think that brings up, I don't know if it necessarily brings up a good point, but it's almost like this mindset of like, rather when you get to that point, like, you kind of have to like stop relying so much on the words, and it's just be like, look,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I'm gonna show you this, or I'm just gonna cast it, and then like you were saying, either jamming it, or I'm just gonna straight up stop you, because that's my only way. I know that you, as the turbo player, you're not trying to politic, you're not trying to use your words, you're going fast, you're jamming, you're trying to win right here and there. I'm
Mhm.
telling you that I'm not even telling you, I'm showing you I can stop
Yeah.
you, and then you're fucked.
Like, we'll both lose. That's fine with me. But like, it's up to you, right? Like, you make the decision here. I will cast the counterspell.
I think that's one of the things that frustrates me the most about Turbo. So like Zach, after we did some content with him, I was telling him that like I mainly find myself like really enjoying like control. Like I've played different versions of Zur, and I'm aware that like the deck is not like a tier 1 strategy, but like damn it, I'm gonna make it a tier 1 strategy. But like I love the commander, so I want to do well with it. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
but I have tried different versions of it. Like I played a more turbo version. I've played more like, mid range slash, I guess like tempo plans. And then I've went more into like stacks plans, and then I just like found myself on the control plan. And I think that that's been like the most fun I've had, because it's allowed me to have like a lot of agency in the game, allowed me to like politic a lot, and I enjoy that aspect of the game. I feel like when you play Turbo, it's much more like, instead of playing cEDH, you're just playing like solitaire. And do you find that do you shy away from, I guess, like strategies like that? Have you played those strategies, and like how do you feel about those, like I guess like the other archetypes in cEDH?
Yeah, I definitely like, yes, I've tried a lot of things. I've played Rog Sai a bunch. I think it's just the thing is like, and before the bans is when I played some more Rog Sai, because the deck was so good. But I think that in general, it doesn't fit my playstyle as much because, number one, I like to have agency in a game. Like, I want to be able to, like, have a counterspell, bluff a counterspell, be able to play the game, not like, okay, cool, rolling the dice every single time. There's no agency, and pass it. Either I win or I lose, right? Um, or when you're jamming, whatever. So yes, I think part of that issue for me is that politics, like you said, are not as big of a deal with Turbo. Like, they can be, but in general, like, if I'm just trying to jam on turn one or turn two, then my opponents don't need to, like, there's no politics to be had unless you're getting a draw, right? And so I think that I'm going to win more games by like continuing the game, by making sure I use my politics to stay alive, rather than like push early and get stopped. Like, I think that's, yeah. So I think I lose a lot of like power in a game if I can't use my words.
Do you that okay? So okay, that's very interesting. Do you feel like there is, obviously I know that we're mainly going to focus on the like politics, but do you feel like there
Mhm.
is like a specific, like if you were talking to somebody that obviously, like, I know again everything's context dependent on the deck and like the player
Yeah,
and
yeah.
stuff, but do you feel like there is a certain skill that you would point to and be like, if you want to get good at cEDH, this is the first thing that you should focus on, or like this is the most important thing you should get good at? Like, would politics be that thing, or would it be like a different skill? Like, what would you point to and say, like, work on this first?
That's a No, that's a very good question. I mean, I guess like framed that way, it has to be mulligans. I think mulligans are the most important decision you make in a game, and if you keep a hand that does nothing, no matter what, you're gonna lose, right? So I think that's gonna be number one. I do think like, I guess after that, I may argue that like the window and threat assessment might be the next one. Politics are up there, but it's like a lot of times, like, you don't have to be good at politics. You just have to be like, just okay at them and be able to play the game, because that's more important. So like, once you've hit that threshold of, okay, like, I understand like how these decks work, how my deck works, how I'm gonna be, when I should push, when I'm worried about losing, then you need that fundamental understanding in order to even politic, right? Because like, your politics have to be based on like informed decisions. Like, you know, a lot of times, like, you have to know what the, like, again, I always point to Sisse because it's just so easy for threat assessment. It's just one of the easier decks to see. But like, if you don't know what the deck does, you're not going to be able to threat assess it properly. Like Chatterfang, I remember losing a tournament to Kevin, who's a notorious Chatterfang player, because I just didn't know what his deck did. He just like had win with one tutor, and I'm like, it's probably fine. It's Chatterfang, and I just died, right? So like, I could have politicked the table and lived. I think I would have won that game if I just knew what the deck did. So there's a lot of skills that go tandem, and I don't think you need to like, and it's not like you're maxing out a skill like before you learn the rest. Like, they all go together, but you really have to like learn how you're like, like what the meta is, how your opponent's deck works, and like what hands you should keep. Yeah, I would say starting with that is important.
I love Kevin. I I've met the dude once, and I just
Dude,
fucking
he's
love
great.
Kevin.
Such a
He's
nice
such a
guy.
good fucking dude. And then
Shout
Blake
out
is
Kevin.
laughing. Yeah, Blake is laughing because like you're the second person today that's just been like, yeah, Sisse is the most telegraphed deck.
Yep. Add a magnet. It's just the easiest to think about. Like, okay, like, we know they just have to count to 10 or 5 or whatever, and they win the game. Cool, we get it. Like, like, there's a lot. That's why that deck is hard to play. And yeah. So
Do you? So it's so interesting you say that, because you were talking about like knowing different strategies. Do you think, like, before you became known as like the Kinnan player, like especially like the best Kinnan player right now, but like before you became known as like the Kinnan player, did you experiment with a lot of like I know you said you like played some different strategies,
Yeah.
but
Oh
like
yeah.
did you play a lot of them, or like what do you think it's beneficial for people to be, I guess, like specialists on a deck, or would you tell people like no, go experiment with stuff first, and then if you want to come back to like a strategy and be a specialist, like that's the better move? What would you, I guess, like recommend in that?
Yeah. I would say, I mean, the way that I do it, I don't know exactly what the best way to do it is, but the way that I do it is I stick to a main deck and I play with a lot of other decks. I guess like at this point, I have less time in general, and so I don't do that as much as I used to. One thing that was nice is one of the reasons I played Magic Online for cEDH for a long time was because I could just get whatever deck I wanted. I had like everything built and I didn't need to go sleeve it up, right? Like I could just like press some buttons on my computer and I'm playing a game and getting a little bit of practice. And so that was pretty cool. So I played tons and tons of decks, tried everything. One thing I just, yeah, so I would say like definitely experimenting is important, but I personally stick to a deck for like, you know, close to a year a lot of the time before I like drop it. Um, a lot of time, and a lot of that's just based on the meta. Like, let's say right now, I could be totally switching to Blue Farm, and I would be happy with that decision in a lot of ways because Blue Farm, like I'm choosing decks I think are good in the meta, right? I'm not going to choose a fringe deck at this point just because like we've talked about like if I'm traveling a lot to tournaments, I need to make sure they're worth it. It's more than just like playing the most fun deck. It's although I really enjoy like every deck that I'm maining, but like I'm sure I'd probably have a lot of fun playing a Tolly is what I'm saying. But I'm not gonna I not that the deck is bad, but I think Kinnan is better, right? So yeah, I would say like keep your main deck, make sure you're really good at it, and then play other decks on the side. Like having a lobby con deck when you're traveling to tournaments is fantastic. Print something out, and sleeve it up and have a backup deck. Yeah. So
Well, don't just print it out. Go to Manvault Proxies and use code Triple C and get it that way. I ultimately like whether it's like sticking on the same deck for a long time, like what you're talking about there, of like playing it consistently in events that you go to, and maybe having a few things on the side just to like either play and have fun or like pick up different skill sets from them or things like that, or even going back to when you were talking about like the most important things to like focus on first, like. I feel like I always kind of go back to the comment of like probably the most important thing that, at least in my opinion, is like finding ways to build your own confidence in the game. So whether that is you stick with the
yeah,
same deck
totally.
and just like tailor it like as the meta is shifting, whether you're trying to, focus specifically on the mulligans or even the politicking piece and things like that, like trying different things out. Like ultimately it comes down to like feeling confident in yourself and being able to commit to whatever strategy you feel like plays to your strengths. And I feel like that is an area like you kind of have to get that in experience, just playing the game. But I feel like in our conversations with others, like either in our local meta or there's been a lot of people in our Discord where it's just like, hey, we're going to our first tournament. Like, what is the biggest like thing or piece of advice like that you all have? And it's that piece for me. And I think that is the biggest thing that kind of like if you don't have that, like the confidence, and you don't have kind of like your know-how of the game, kind of like what you're
Yeah.
talking
Oh yeah.
about, like everything else just falls apart.
Yeah. Totally agree with you. Yeah. 100%. Because you have to be like, I mean, you have to be willing to make the decisions and commit in your game, right? Like if I think people can convince you to do some very bad plays for yourself if you don't do that, right? Like you need to be ready to know what your game plan is and be confident. I fully agree with you.
I, as soon as he said that, I had a question, and then he said the make people make you make bad decisions, and I'm just like, definitely, yeah. No, it's all good. I just had like a flashback moment. It's all good. No, I did.
Hold on,
Hey,
which
we've all been
one?
there.
Huh?
Which
Whenever
one?
it was whenever okay, so I had I set some goals for myself. So like it's funny, just for like I guess like context. So me and Chase, like Chase has always been the person that like out of the two of us, he's played more of like the meta strategies,
Uh-huh.
and then I play more of like the fringe stuff. Like when we
Yeah.
first started like doing content and like doing the channel and everything, he was, he still has all the pieces, but for like Blue Farm, and so like he had a lot of experience on it, and like
Right.
Rogsai and Sisay is like pretty much like his main like deck, and then I always played like random stuff. I'd play like Jessica Ishai, and like Zur is like my main deck, and then I play like Arden strategy, just goofy stuff. Like that's just the kind of stuff that I like. But Zur is probably like the first time that I've actually it was the deck that got me into EDH, and then I brought it into cEDH, and I was like, I really want to get good with this deck, and I took it to an event and just did terrible. And I went like I was doing fine locally, but then we had this moment where like I kind of had like a crossroads that I hit, and Chase was like, you should play Blue Farm, like just it's basically doing what you're doing but like way better. And I was like, okay. And then I thought about it, and I was like, okay, do I want to win the game, or do I want to win the game my way? And I was like, I think I actually want to win the game my way. So I was like, I'm gonna stick it out with Zur. And so like I had a goal where I was like, okay, by the end of the year, I want a top 16 with Zur on like in like a 60 plus player event. And so like I just slowly, it's like I get one win, and then I'd get like a couple wins. Then finally I made top 16 at like an 80 something player event. I was really happy.
Nice.
But in that game, I got convinced not to steal enchantment a Blue Farm's Ristic Study, and I regret that decision all the time.
No.
Corbin is a very, very good player, and I was like, Corbin, explain to me right now why I should not take your Ristic Study, because I had a fish, and I was like, I have to pitch one of these two to a Chrome Mox, and I'm very tempted to just take your Ristic Study. And he didn't have the interaction to stop me from doing it, but he was like, look, man, like there's other, and then I got talked into not doing it. But that was total tangent.
No, you're good.
Yep.
That's what Blue Farm does, man. That's exactly. Hey, I've been that Blue Farm. I feel you.
Well, but it kind of, again, it ties back to that confidence piece where it's just like if you you're doing the threat assessment, you are kind of viewing the board state for what it is, like you kind of are saying where each player is in the game and whatever their role is at that given time. Like if you are the control player and you're like, Blue Farm is trying to jam this Ristic Study, like their main thing that the deck seems to be going for outside of no bad cards Kinnan list, like you just send it, right? Just feel confident and be able to send it in moments like that.
Yep, totally. And I think Ristic is always such a hard one too, because it's like those games are so much harder to predict. Like they're the big games, right? It's like in the moment multiple people have these draw engines, like the like so many of the normal rules of Magic go out the window. It's like, okay, like, card advantage, okay, 1-for-1, like, or whatever. You need to be like taking these trades, like paying for Ristic. It's like, no, like all of a sudden when there's 2 or 3 Ristics in play, like you just have to know that you're beating them. You don't pay for any more Ristics most of the time, and you're beating them at the big game. And oftentimes countering or removing a Ristic, oftentimes, depending on the deck you're playing, is not the right play, because someone else will have one, or the other 2 players will get more ahead, or like you'll become the threat because you removed all the other ones, and they'll 3v1 you. And it's just like, it becomes like, and so the way I play is like, all right, like unless someone is out ahead of the pack, don't touch their draw. Just let them go, stop their win attempt, make sure you're drawing cards too. But like, if there's equity at the table, you're fine with that. I'm fine with 6 Ristics in my game as long as 2 of them are mine, right? Like, so yeah.
I think that I don't remember who I heard say this, but like once they said it, it made a lot of sense. Like if there's one Ristic Study at the table, like there is no parity. Like this person is like actively ahead.
Correct.
The moment that there are 2 or more, like parity has almost like been reset. Like whoever the other player is that is also drawing their cards, like that person's not able to get ahead of that person, the other player.
Yes.
So like you can at least expect them, like they will interact.
Then you feed them both too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I liked that idea. Because I used to be the same. I was the same way. Like I would always find myself like paying all the time, or I'd be like, like even if I had a Ristic and the other person had a Ristic, but this idea that like your Ristic is feeding my Ristic, like you're drawing cards, I'm going to be drawing more cards. Like this isn't necessarily a bad thing. And then my Zur deck, like I built it off of one of my buddies, Xander, but like that was the whole idea behind it, was just like cloning Ristic Studies, like using Zur to like find more and more Ristic Studies so that I could eventually just overwhelm with like advantage at that
you're
point.
Speaking my language. I love it.
Yeah. Oh, dude, it's so fun. It was such a good, like he had the list back in, I'm trying to think of whenever I found his list. I guess I found his list back in, oh my goodness, probably like early 2024 maybe, but it was called like 2 Ristics and a Trench Coat. And it was just, that was the strategy. It was just like, but he wasn't using copy enchantment. He was using like Estrid's Invocation. So Estrid's would like, sometimes it would like exile itself and it would come back in as like a tithe, or, it would basically just give you a fish that's going to stay around forever. And it was.
I love that card, but I can't I can't really play it, but I want to. Like the card is so cool.
Yeah, the biggest downside is it only being able to copy your stuff, so you already have to be ahead.
Mhm.
Whereas like the other ones,
Exactly.
you can use it to like get yourself back in the game. But that was the whole strategy. And
Yes.
then and then like cards like Delny come out and you get like 2 searches off of swings. It's so good. So I was like, this is
Oh, I don't think I've ever seen. I haven't played against a lot of Zur in a while. I don't think I've ever seen Delny and Zur, which makes perfect sense. That's insane.
dude, it's so fun though. Like and also like there's been other like I don't know, it's fun to because like watching your list, like how you were going into like the heavier like clone
Mhm.
plan, it got me just experimenting with like other stuff too. So like I started going into there's good enchantments that clone artifacts. So things like copy
Copy
artifact, and
artifact.
then also even
Mhm.
just like Mirror Maid it can copy artifacts
Yeah,
as well. So like there have been times where I've
totally.
literally like swung and I get 2 triggers and they think that I'm like, oh, okay, like he's going Ristic. And it's like, no, I'm going like copy artifact, Mirror Maid. And then I now have like 3 Wishclaw talismans and I just win the game.
And
Like
win the
just,
game.
yeah. So
Yeah,
like,
dude. Oh,
yeah.
that's gas.
So it's very fun. But
100%.
what drew you to that style, I guess, of Kinnan over something like like a grind 'em into the dust or like these other big flip
Yeah,
versions? Like what drove you to that specifically?
it was a long thought process to get to this point. It's always evolving, but like the original, like what ended up happening was I had always seen the grind them into dust list, and I always was like, okay, this deck mulligans like shit. I hate it. Like this deck is good, obviously, but it mulligans terribly. Like because it has a terrible mana base. It's got like it was running at the time Homeward Path, Treasure Vault, Ancient Tomb, Seagate Restoration. You're on just like all the like you have to have 2 basics in your list. The what else? Ease Emergent Zone. Some people are on like Cephaly Coliseum. There's like all these lands that don't cast your spells or like don't do turn 1 dork or turn 1 fish. Like it's so tough. Um, and so and then of course you're drawing all your big flips. So you're when you're drawing a Tidespot Tyrant and you're mulligan, like all of a sudden you're just like a lot of your hands are just moles like 1 card lower, 2 card lower because you drew your big cards. And so they are very powerful when you get into play. It's not like that it's a bad strategy. I'm not saying that, but that was always something I wanted to change with Kinnan. It took a long time to like of experimenting to actually like push it as far as it is now, where there's like almost no big flips pretty much. There's a couple, but you're not trying to flip the Kinnan. It's really bad. And so the main thing was basically saying like, okay, how can we use the most broken parts of Kinnan where like that it is a combo piece, it is ramp, and it is an infinite mana outlet. Those are the best parts of Kinnan. The flipping is not the best part of Kinnan. Like it never has been. And so if we can like utilize those to their maximum capacity, the deck will just be better, right? And like especially with the banning of Dockside, Kinnan is like has some of the most mana in the format, period, and Blue Farm cannot catch up anymore. And so that was like a big thing. It's like, okay, now we really do have this mana advantage over Blue Farm that like we could break parity like crazy. If we could just draw cards, our spells are going to be like, even if we have worse spells to a degree, like we can just cast more of them and win the game. And so that was like definitely a big part of it. And so finally getting to this point of like, okay, like what's the like the realization? Okay, we can go in on clones. Like how deep can we go? Like what? Like we just need to make sure. Like if we have more mana, our creature tutors become demonic tutor, kind of right. Like if my Finale of Devastation can be like an infinite mana, or well, I guess Finale is already infinite mana outlet. Let's say Nature's Rhythm can get me infinite mana outlet with Thrasios. It can get me a Clever Impersonator to get a Ristic or Tithe. It of course can get me a Flash Enabler, or it could just get Hullbreaker Horror to win the game. It can get a Consecrated Sphinx. It could just do everything I need to do, and so now all of a sudden you've like fixed the other big issue of the deck, which is lack of tutors, right? So adding these clones to have more consistency finding these effects, and also yeah, just like making versatile tutors has been like the main thing there. And now that we're pushed to this point of like having these mulligans a lot better, the deck just feels so much better. Like, I mean, the only unfortunate part of the deck right now, that is the inevitable downside, is when you do get blown out or mull low and don't have a good hand, you can't flip Kinnan as a backup plan, or you can, but it won't probably work. And so, that's the only downside. But yeah, it's definitely it was a journey to get to that point, and it's still a journey. Like there's still all kinds of like the now the list feels really really tight, which is great, but cuts are very hard at this point.
I'm curious because like with so this is something that just popped into my head. Like me and Chase were having this conversation one day. whenever I was actively like working on Xur and he was working on cEDH, and one of the things that I just started like playing around with cEDH because I just wanted to try some stuff out.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we kept running into is obviously like because you run so many cards that you want in the deck to be able to do with like the cEDH game plan, it feels bad to like draw a lot of those cards. Do you? I feel like I've always I don't I think I get this from like Yu-Gi-Oh tournament grinding. Like in that, I always used to say like card draw is king. Like above all else, like I want to see more cards because it gives me more options, more whatever. How do you navigate that? I guess like in those decks where you do want your combo piece, or you want the stuff that you don't want to be casting those things. You want to be activating or like just getting them straight out of the deck. How do you ride that fine line? I guess.
Well, short answer is I don't play those decks. Long answer is that you have to be very, very. It's harder. It's very. You have to be very careful, and I think like those decks absolutely still win the game, but like those players are very good, very specialized. Like I guess let's see, Dio is Dio is a
Very good.
fantastic per se player, very
Yes.
consistent on the deck. He makes it work. So I guess he's probably a better one to ask for those secrets. But I don't know. I think like I guess realistically, I'm with you. I think card draw is king. I think the more cards you draw, the more you're going to win the game, as long as you build your deck to it. So I've played. I remember testing a bunch of cEDH and being like, "Wow, I've drawn Nicol Bolas and a bunch of these planeswalkers, and I lost. Like I drew 30 cards, 40 cards, and I didn't win the game." And so yeah, I think like you just can't rely on the Ristic Study plan as heavily. Of course, that is I guess one of the big answers is like you have to mulligan for. I guess no. Here's probably a better answer. You have to mulligan for your combo, and with Sisay that might just mean having enough mana and like a legendary, rather than mulliganing for advantage. And you have to kind of go in on that plan and be like, okay, like I just need this resiliency to blow out, rather than resiliency to blow out by having multiple ways to get your combo, rather than having ways to draw cards. I think that's probably the real answer.
No, I totally agree with you. I think that that's kind of what I was about to say. I feel like when it comes to those style of decks, like yes, I play a lot of Sisay,
Yeah.
but I always kind of like I can rope Sisay, Magda. I feel like Tyam
Yeah.
even like the big flips Kinnan, like all kind of in this like one category of like either just cheating things into play or like doing strategies that are not like in the traditional sense of things on the stack and things like that. I've been in events and in tournaments whenever like I will look at my first 7, I'm like, oh, there's an Esper Sentinel and a fish in this opening hand, just being on Sisay, and like most people would be like, that's fucking great. But then if it's like 2 lands, no rocks, and no dorks, I'm probably like most of the time I'm probably pitching that hand, and it's because I'm trying to do more of what is the deck itself like wanting to do, as opposed to like, because I've ran into a lot of situations with that deck in particular where if I try to go for a value engine early, I'm not getting there. Like even if it's just an Esper Sentinel or a fish, I'm not getting there because I got to count to 5. I have to get one of each color by like turn 2.5 is what it feels like. And that's what really helps enable things. And like, I think that I'm kind of talking about this now because you brought up that point for Kinnan of like the flip portion of things is not the important part, or at least the way you see how you've constructed the deck. It's not the important part. It is the mana production and things like that, and being able to kind of rely on that. And I kind of have to agree with you on that because I see that even in playing Sisay. As soon as Kinnan touches the board, people are like, oh, fuck. He just went from like 5 to 10 mana and now he has double activations and keeps going and so on, so on, so on.
Now
So
you get Dihada and win the game. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, my version of it, I play something very, very different. So I play like a birthing pod version of Sisay, where so it's like not even afraid to draw cards. Like it could go in a bunch of different directions. But kind of going back to those points though that you're making, like I think it's interesting that you have chosen to view Kinnan as a commander in that sense, as far as like, hey, it's not the flips portion of it, it's everything else that it has to offer, and then like tailor the deck around that and not the flips. I think that's cool.
Yeah, right. It's like I think realistically the way that like the reason for that is, or I guess that like mentality has been applied to a lot of decks, and I think it's made them a lot better, of saying, okay, like just because are like a card does this, like the flip part, doesn't mean we have to build around it. And like you play to your like the real strengths of like what these cards do. Like, and I think what I'm getting at is like from Blue Farm, there used to be all kinds of cards that worked with Timna, and it was built around Timna, and it was like, what is the Loyal Apprentice? Is that what I'm thinking? That makes a 1/1 if you have your commander.
Yeah, it makes
People
like
used
the
to have
hasty
that as like
copter
the
or
biggest
whatever.
staple in Blue Farm. Yeah, exactly. And it's like realistically, like, is that like Blue Farm does not need that. That's not the strength of Blue Farm. Like once they started cutting those cards, the deck got way better. And so I think that's the mentality is like over time you start optimizing and realizing like, okay, like how do I make this deck just like, and I guess like a lot of it is just running generically good cards. That's where the name No Bad Cards Kidding comes from in the first place. Is that like you want to just be running cards that are good if you have a Kid in play or not. Is that do you have a lot of bad cards in the deck? Yes, okay. There's tons of terrible cards in Kinnan still, no matter what you do. But like that's the goal of the deck and the mentality that you're trying to go for is that like I'm happy to cast a Clever Impersonator and copy Heuristic Study or play Heuristic Study in any way, no matter what the board state is, as long as as long as I can clone it or get one in play, right?
I think that and I've said this, like out of every deck in the top 10 that I actually have played, because I was like, I probably should learn some of these meta decks. I definitely think that Kinnan has been my favorite, just because I feel
Nice.
like it is like the polar opposite of the problem that I run into with Zur, because like Esper sucks at making mana and Kinnan has all the mana. So like I can just keep these counter spells and I can keep, like you said, like a clone or just a value engine,
Yep.
and then I'm like, man, I can cast multiple of these. Whereas in my deck I have to just commit. I'm like, okay, do I play this value engine or do I just wait and like hope that I don't get like guarantee that I'm not gonna get blown out, or do I just like send it and we'll see what happens? So yeah, Kinnan has been very fun. And also just I feel like I feel like yes, if you're playing like the big flips versions or you're playing like those types of like variants of it, I feel like obviously removing the Kinnan hurts the deck way more. But I feel like in the version that you have built, it does suck still, obviously, to lose the Kinnan, because it sometimes can cut
Yeah.
your mana production just like half.
100%.
But it makes the deck so much more resilient, because you're not basically, there's not a giant flag that says remove me and I can't win the game. It's, you may
Totally.
remove the Kinnan and the next thing you know, it's like, oh, well, it doesn't matter. I still drew 20 cards. Like,
Yeah. Right, and like it's the whole like point of like not forcing the interaction, just like you said, like that is such a huge part of this strategy in general. Is like, yeah, like killing the cannon absolutely will hurt me, but it's like it's not winning me the game most of the time. Like, well, sometimes, but like a lot of times it's like just kind of sitting there doing passive advantage rather than like real advantage. And so if they use their removal spell on that, they're not stopping a win attempt, and they're probably losing to someone who like that might stop a win attempt, right? So once you've used your removal, then it opens up a window for somebody else. And so it's like it's actively discouraging people from removing it. And again, even if they do, you can bounce back like way easier because again, as long as you're drawing cards, which is the whole point. So yeah, that resiliency is really key. The only issue, of course, is when you don't find the draw engine. There's going to be times when that happens, and then the deck just feels like if you have all mana, the deck is definitely that is the big downside. You could still keep those hands and hope to draw something because there's a lot of outs to get a draw engine in play. But like you're in a much worse spot than you would be if it was just like a flip stack. So
I'm curious, because like we also we let like our patrons and stuff know that we were obviously going to be chatting with you, because I wanted to see if they had any questions. And one of the questions that did come up was because you have played Blue Farm and you have played Kinnan,
Mhm.
and obviously like Kinnan is now the deck that you go to tournaments with. Do you feel like that deck, like do you feel like Kinnan is better than Blue Farm, or do you mainly just play it because you feel
It's
like
a
you
good question.
perform better with it than Blue Farm?
I was because this is I think now my answer is yes. I actually do think it's better than Blue Farm. Barely. But I do think so. I think this is something that like has taken a long time to give you that answer. But yeah, I think so. And I think that like when I picked up Kinnan though, the answer was different. I thought Blue Farm was better. And well, like at least somewhere after I picked it up, maybe not right away, but then I was like, it's okay. I'm just going to stick with it. Part of that is just like real world, like reasons where it's like, okay, I just don't have time to grind Blue Farm right now. And I've played a lot of Kinnan. And so I think Kinnan's insane. And I think if I switch to Blue Farm, because I haven't been playing it, I'll probably do worse. Cause like, no matter how much you played a deck, if you take time off, it'll, that's what happens. But still, I just was enjoying Kinnan. And I think a lot of the reason that like I stuck with it regardless was because the tech, every time it got stale, someone else or I would think of new tech to try and push the deck further and further, and it's just gone. Like I love brewing and testing and like trying out new cards to push a deck to its limit. I love the optimization of deck building. It's so fun. And so Kinnan has like consistently had that happen. And so yes, now I think it's better, but even then I stuck with it just because it was so fun to optimize.
I think it's great that you went into like the brewing and like the optimization and things like that, because how long have you been on like the hidden strings tech? I feel
Not
like
that
that's
long.
something I was about to
Yeah.
say, I feel like that's something that you just recently have been trying out. Has that been something you've really been like enjoying in the deck, or?
Yeah, definitely. And I'll credit where credit is due. Kevin Simmons it's his tech. It was his idea. That's where I got it from, and I think it's a great idea. Yeah, that card is great. That and dramatic reversal I've been on for a long time. I love that card in Kinnan. But this is very similar idea. It's like, okay, like a lot of times hidden strings is just making you like, you know, ritualing for 2 to start with, and then you swing the same turn and a rituals for 4. So it's just like it's 2 mana, make 8 mana, right? Like plus 6 mana in a turn. Even if it's just 2 mana, make 2 more mana, like well, sorry, spend 2, get 4 back, so you net 2. It's a dark ritual. It's just like it's insane. And so like I think sometimes people like I mean Kinnan is still a mana hungry deck like crazy. And I think that was one of the issues that I had with like people saying like, oh no, I can just like I can run Cycrypt, I can run Nezahal, I mean those cards are still totally fine, but I can run all these big cards because I can cast them. It's like, well, okay, now you cast them and then what? Like you need to still be able to do other things. And so like still having these rituals just makes you go faster and makes you just like a lot of times it's like, okay, cool. I'm maybe ritualing into a Ristic Study and passing with mana open because now I can win the game at instant speed if the game goes crazy, right? Like it gives you these outs. It just gives you so much more to work with. And even just like after having a Valley Flood Caller in play or a Flash Enabler, all of a sudden, like now that ritual will win you the game because you have 30 cards in hand and every mana is worth like more than 10 cards. And so ritualing for 4 is insane, right?
I love that you brought up dramatic reversal in that too, because I'm not gonna lie, like after we did an episode like several months ago on like kind of how to like blue farm your deck. And that's whenever like we were talking like breaking down Zur after a tournament and
Yeah.
having that kind of discussion and taking elements from that. The dramatic reversal was something I took from you and incorporated into Sisse actually. And I've been trying that out just to see how I feel
Nice.
about
I love
that,
it.
as far as just like, hey, just 2 mana, let's untap everything, reset, put more activations on the stack. So I love that you even in the your version of this, the no bad cards, you are still finding opportunities to either include new pieces or experiment with different tech, things like that. Has there been anything that's like been on your radar as far as like anything new that's been printed, or just like anything that
Yeah.
like you're like, oh, I want to try this out. Let's see where it goes.
I mean, well, the latest edition I think is like one that a lot of people. I mean, it's not too hard to figure out what it's doing, but Dizzy Spell is like the latest addition to the deck, which is 1 mana transmute for a 1 drop, just so it's 4 mana Mystic Remora. So that one's cool. I do think that like in general, most of the time, if a card's on my radar and I think it's good enough, it's already in the deck. Um, I say like if I'm testing it, it's probably in the deck already, like on the updated one. I'm not really like hiding a test list, but um, yeah, I do a lot of theory crafting before I'll add a card to the list. I think the only things I guess that I've been thinking about recently are I mean, just to name a few cards, like Seedborn Muse is still good. That was cut recently. I'm not planning on adding it back or anything. Like again, it would be in if it was, but it is a good card. And like a lot of times, it's the slots are so tight. Emrakul, the Promised End, 13 mana Emrakul. That card is gas, but I can't quite justify a slot. So, and that's the one that when you cast it, you gain control of target opponent during that
Mhm.
player's next turn, and it costs 1 less for each card in your graveyard. And it's the thing is it's triggered from cast, so they cannot counter it. It's like SWAT. Deflecting SWAT's pretty much the only answer. Um, or
I've
they,
lost to that card twice now with my own
it's
fucking
good.
deck with one of the Nashville
Well,
locals.
Fucking Brandon.
so cool.
Brandon
You
literally he
not only
keeps
do you get to like, oh, go ahead.
he literally keeps like on his Emrakul, he
Oh, on
keeps like
Shorkai,
tally marks. Yeah, Shorkai Brandon.
I
Yeah.
love him.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes, Brandon is so the Reaper, he's amazing.
Yeah.
He's yes, him and I have
Motherfucker,
talked
dude.
Shortkai a lot. Because again, I used to play Shortkai for a while, and I love that deck. And that's where the Emrakul tech came from. A lot of the tech from Shortkai came to Kinnan. But anyways, yes, I love that. The tally
Yeah.
of Emrakul is so funny.
Yes. Yeah. Chases two of those talents.
I am.
Nice.
I've avoided the Emrakul so far.
I was gonna say that like it's so funny because with that card, not only do you get to win the game, you also get to take their seat while doing it, and it's so funny. Uh, but yeah, anyways, that card's great. Another card that I've been thinking about that has been in and out of the list because it's like another piece of interaction is subtlety. Subtlety is awesome interaction. It beats uncounterable creatures, deals with Bowmaster. The only issue with the card is, of course, if like specifically with Bowmaster, if they have a Ristic Study themselves or a draw engine, they often can like replay the Bowmaster the same turn cycle, which so it doesn't permanently deal with it. So that's the only issue there. But it is really good at stopping like these uncounterable wins. And let's see what else. Cryptolith, right, as another enduring vitality effect is really good. I like that a lot. But again, slots are just tight. Can't quite justify it. It probably would be like in Hidden Strings spot, and I think Hidden Strings is just a better card. Um, and I guess that's pretty much. Oh, the only other consideration that I've been trying to do recently is, and so I cut Unagi, the Unagi of Kyoshi Island, the new Avatar printing, and I added it back. And the reason I added it back was because I found myself still wanting a like. It used to be Seedborn Muse was my slot for a 5-drop tutor when I needed just a big impactful play that it just like kind of generically good. Unagi kind of fits that a lot of times, and I found myself like having 5 mana, really wanting to spend that 5 mana in this turn, and then like tutoring a fairy mastermind instead. And I'm like, why? Like, I should have a card there. I wish, and this is basically like the idea is when there's no Ristic Study or Mystic Remora in play to copy with Clever Impersonator. So having like an out to draw cards with your tutors. So I think what I would like to have is a different 5-drop that was like I honestly want Mystic Remora as a 5-drop in that slot. Nezahal is just a little too expensive. But I just want some other, passive card draw engine. Unagi fits for now, but I think I need to wait for the card to be printed, honestly.
I am curious. So one of our buddies, so which he was so excited whenever we said that we were doing this because like he loves Kinnan. Like that's just been his deck.
Nice.
He loves it, and he told me to ask you about a specific card, which I'm sure you
Okay.
do. You know what Psychic Possession is?
Oh yeah. Totally. That card's good. I've almost tested. I haven't tested it actually, but I've almost added it to the list and played it for a tournament. Um, yeah, that card is okay. So Psychic Possession, 4 mana, 2 blue and 2. Right. Let's see. Let me pull it up. So enchant player. Whenever they draw a card, you draw a card, and you skip your draw step. Right. Psychic Possession. Yeah. So the only thing about this card is it again like if this was a creature, I would absolutely run it over Unagi. I think that would be great. But it isn't a creature, and we need our tutors to work and find us these draw engines. So yeah, the card's totally reasonable. I think the only downside of this is you get some weird dynamics. Actually, and maybe this is a good time to bring up Steel Enchantment. Steel Enchantment is obviously a powerful effect. We were talking about it earlier in Zur. I'm not on that card because it causes it basically by itself makes the best play of the player you've stole their draw engine from. Their best play is to either counter Steel Enchantment or remove it, and they can remove it anytime throughout the game to get their card back, right? And so like creating that dynamic, it's not about like I think certain times people are like, oh no, it's like spite. People want spite play, they won't take it back. It's like no, it's actually just their best play to get it back. And so very weird dynamics there. Yeah, it's like obviously better than like copy enchantment mirror maid because it costs less and it takes theirs. But in reality, you don't want to be, you know, doing a 3v1 or even like it's like a 3v1 because you're ahead now and a 1v1 like even more because they're trying to get it back. And so you need to avoid that. And so psychic possession is has some weird things here where people will pay for that Ristic Study if like they'll pay for the other player's Ristic Study because now they get to pay one to stop you drawing 2 cards. Like they'll draw a card, you'll draw a card, and so like that's a weird dynamic. Plus, They might not draw from things. So basically, because they're afraid of you, they might kind of like king make the other two players because they choose not to draw cards. So that's the only downside that I see with that card. But again, I haven't actually tested this card, so I that could be like overvalued. I think in certain games, obviously it's going to be insane. Like it's just another Ristic study or better, depending on like the situation. So yeah.
I got you. I do think definitely agree with you too about Steel Enchantment. I've almost cut that from my list, like just as a Zerg player. The only reason that I keep it in is the fact that anytime you play, because it's technically still an aura, so like anytime you swing with Zerg and you put an aura
Yeah,
into play, it comes in just directly attached to the thing. So like I don't have to
I
target it
know.
all.
It's
Yeah.
different in Sir. It's
Yeah.
different in
So
Sir.
like
That's pretty cool.
that's the only reason I've kept that card in. But there have been times where I've like accidentally started like premature stack battles where you're like, you cast it and somebody
Mhm.
like goes to counter. And you're like, hey man, let's the takes these back. You said, hey, let's wind this back. My bad. Sorry, that was the wrong card. Copy enchantment. And they're like, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, exactly. But that's it. That illustrates the whole point. Totally. It's like, okay, cool. They're fine with you copying it because they have one, just not stealing it. So
Yeah.
yes, 100%. That's how I feel. Yep.
Yeah. The idea of like we can draw cards versus I can draw cards. They're like, no, 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 no.
Yes. And that, I mean, again, that's the whole theory of like how the Kinnan deck plays, how no buy cards plays. So yeah, 100%. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe one day at some point I'll try Psychic Possession. I think again, like it's crazy. I mean, Avatar gave us so many good cards, and like there's been so many cards printed for Kinnan recently. Flash Photography is the most insane new printing. Of course, Cabbage Merchant as well. Wan Shi Tong, like those are cards that make Kinnan significantly better, and that's why I think it's finally better than Blue Farm. Just like these editions. So I don't think it's crazy to think that like that Psychic Possession Unagi slot will be filled by a good card draw creature soon. Wizards will just keep power creeping the format.
I am curious now that because like this just do you feel like even though you said like you feel like Kinnan is now slightly better than Farm, do you feel like the skill required to like pilot the deck properly to would is like higher than something like Farm?
Oh, that's a good question. I think it depends where you're at. So my opinion on that is that I think that Kinnan is a much harder deck to pick up than Farm. It is less forgiving, especially no bad cards Kinnan, rather than like flips, because flips again you have that out of like, okay, cool, I'll just flip Void Winnower and hope for the best. But like Farm is gonna draw you cards. You'll find a win. It's very easy to find a breach win. One tutor, you win the game. And mulligans are easier because again they're more forgiving. Maybe you'll keep a medium hand that just pays off because eventually you'll get there. So yeah, at a lower level, maybe medium level, I think Farm is just much better. At a high level, I do think it's similar. I think I don't know. Some people have said Kinnan is more skill intensive. I don't know if I fully. I mean, I don't know. I think once you know what you're doing really well, I think you're going to be just as good on Blue Farm as Kinnan. I don't think there's much of a difference because you understand the format well. So yeah, I think a lot of it is just the traps that Kinnan puts you in those mulligans, and understanding like, okay, like where do I actually have to put this hand? Like how do I? Because the card draw game, the big games where everyone has a risk study, those games are just hard, and that's what Kinnan wants to do. So
I'm waiting, I left the pause if you in case you wanted to say anything.
Well, yeah,
I love that. That was so funny.
If
Yeah.
not, I will continue to yap. I'm just giving you an opportunity.
he'll keep going. No, I think it kind of
Having a
reminds me of what
blast.
we did talk about with Max. Like he kept making the comment about like how good black is as far as like being able to
Mhm.
incorporate it in
Yeah.
any deck because of the tutors. Like that is like one of the things you kind of miss out on in Kinnan. Like, and I feel like that's a big piece that goes along with what you're discussing there as far as like, Blue Farm, and maybe to even some extent like Rogsai, and like anything that can have black, it's a little bit more forgiving on your mulligans and what you're doing with the deck because, oh, you could just go and grab whatever piece that you want.
Yes.
You can do that in Kinnan, but it's a lot different. I feel
Yeah.
like, obviously you have like the good green creature tutors, and then you have things like transmute artifact, or, if people choose to run like reshape, or, I don't know. We've seen some lists that have ran like the Whirl of Invention, or that card, like the instant speed,
I'm
equivalent
on
to
that now,
quarter
actually.
calling
Yeah,
for
yeah, yeah.
artifacts. Yeah. Like we've seen those pieces, but you know, when you're playing a deck that is such
Mhm.
in the lower like color combinations compared to these 3, 4, and 5 color decks that are performing well right now in our format, like it can be a little bit of a challenge. And so, but I mean, obviously, if you're leaning heavily into like the heuristic studies and trying to focus on your value engines and and generating mana, like that's how you overcome it.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. But again, it's like if you don't find that mulligan or you mull too aggressively for it and find a hand that doesn't function because you can't always find restrictivity, like, you know, that's the hard part.
And
Yep.
that is why I play Zerg, because I can always find Ristic.
That's fair. It's in the command zone. It's different.
I'm just, but no, I am curious. So, because obviously, like with I'm trying to tie this back into politics, but I have too much fun, man. I love the fact that I'm getting to ask you questions. Like this is very fun. But like just like obviously being a part of like the MTG Basics crew and like having other really good players there that you can play games with, and you can obviously like theorycraft and like workshop all these ideas. Like, how do you like how do you navigate, like obviously those players are good and they know you and they know like your game plan, they know what you're trying to do. When you're sitting down in games like that and you're having to obviously fight through those types of battles, how do you use, I guess, politics to help you get through those games where again like they understand it's like, okay, we can't give Evan an inch because if not he's gonna take it away. So like I get, how do you navigate that?
Well, I think in those games, there's like mutual respect across the table most of the time. And so, like, I think the harder ones are, and I'll get to that in a sec, but the harder ones are like where you sit down with only one other, like, very, very, very skilled player. The other players may be good, but they aren't like maybe as known or like known skilled players. What often happens there, or what sometimes happens there, like with Jason Doan, what he'll do is he'll just like pregame, like, do you know who this is? This guy wins every time, just like goes crazy and just like tries to like really get him. Like those are hard because it's like, like, they're just kind of like, I guess for lack of a better word, just like gaslighting, trying to be like, no, he's the only one that does anything in the state. Like, those are hard.
It just throws
Because
you
it's
under
like
the bus
sometimes
before
they'll
you can
just,
start.
yeah, it's like sometimes and like, it's like the hard part is like when they're doing that either way, no matter what the threat is. And it's like sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong, but it's like the other players might just get a little overwhelmed. And that can be weird. And then you kind of have to match the energy and it gets kind of chaotic. It's terrible. But but shout out to Jason Doan, he's great. But no, but yeah, I think with a table of all four really, really known good players that you played a bunch of games with, know each other. Those games, yeah, there's mutual respect across the table. So it's not really like, it's not like that. People aren't just ganging up one player. Everyone's good. We all know they're really good players. Honestly, like regardless of what leaderboards or whatever say, like everyone up there is very good player, can take any game off of anybody. And so I think, you know, the politics get really intense. And again, like this is where you're not tricking anybody most of the time. Like, people know like what all the tricks would be, and they're not going to get baited. They're going to know the threat assessment. They're not going to let you get away with anything. Most of the time, it comes down to like, again, making those mutually beneficial deals that just help each other out, like making sure you're still playing the game. And a lot of times, like, you just navigate yourself into a spot where you're just like slowly getting this advantage and not pushing too hard so you don't get countered. Because in those games, people know that like you can't deal with the draw engine, you can't deal with this advantage most of the time. Not always, but most of the time. And so you get to these games where people are drawing their entire decks manually with 3 heuristic studies, and like 3 or 4 people at the table have done that, and those games are really hard, right? Not that it's always that, right, but that is definitely a common play pattern in like practice games that I have. So it's like, which of course that's hard in Swiss because you've run out of time. But regardless, I think, yeah. So I guess I don't know. The politics are just going to be very focused on logic, like how can we work together to either stop them or get mutual advantage, and that's what it comes down to. Yeah.
So do you find it then, is it harder to do you find it harder to win the games whenever like it is the good players that are sitting at the table, or whenever it's just like, or do you
Yeah.
find it harder like whenever okay.
Totally.
Yeah, because I didn't know, because that was
Yeah. I
something
mean,
that
there there are like Swiss versus like inexperienced versus experienced player. There are different, like it's not just like, it's just objectively harder the better your opponents are because it's a 4-player game. Sometimes it's not the case. But like, the reason for that is in Swiss, sometimes people will throw the game for somebody else, right? Like, or by just making an honest mistake, but
yeah.
like they'll give away the game because they didn't understand something or haven't played enough to know, and that's that makes it really hard to win too. But in general, I think, yeah, absolutely. That those games are definitely harder because the players are very good. They know what they're doing.
So then how do you navigate, like, if say like practicing, or if you can't find games with other good players, or like obviously I use that in air quotes because obviously like a lot of this is kind of objective, but unless you're just, or like
Of course,
subjective, I mean,
totally.
yeah, but like,
Subjective, yeah, yeah.
yeah, if you say like you're playing with a local group and you feel like maybe they're not super up to snuff on like the threat assessment, or whether it's just like, maybe you're the player that's getting overly threat assessed, like how do you still get good reps in those games without, because like some people will get discouraged, like again, like
Yeah.
we've got friends that like they feel like maybe sometimes like they get overly threat assessed, or maybe like nobody's willing to politic at all, or just what, because they were consistently winning a lot, and then now it's gotten to the point where like they're on like a long losing streak.
Yeah.
How do you still get good in those situations, even though like obviously it's not necessarily the quality you're going to see at like a top 16, but like how do you still turn those games into like good experiences for yourself to like get reps in?
Well, there's a couple things to say there. I think in general, something you should be doing in practice is at least getting a decent percentage of your games with people who are better than you. I think that's a very good rule of thumb. But I also think that like getting games with people who are the same level or worse than you is important too, because that's just going to be the case no matter what. And because of the dynamics of this, it's not like 1v1. It's not like player skill equates to winning the game. It doesn't necessarily mean that, right? Or especially like game mechanics skill, I should say. And so I think, yeah, like, really the answer to that is just like there's so many situations you're going to have to figure out in cEDH, and playing against fringe decks. Like if people don't know what Zur runs and they play against you, because they haven't played against you before, they're going to lose those games because maybe they didn't even realize that you can go Necropotence win game in your end step. Like maybe they're like, okay, he's getting a Ristic Study, and you have 4 mana available, and you're like, no, I'm winning this game right now. And like that. So those kind of reps are good. Like I think, yeah, maybe you lose to that, maybe you get over threat assess, but you're going to learn from that. And like this is what I was talking about when I had those like so many games on record. Like I have like the meta chart goes. There's so many decks I've played against. I've played like maybe I think I remember seeing like 100 games against some Grenzo player. Do you know what Grenzo does?
Like the
Yeah,
manipulate the
yeah,
bottom of
yeah.
the library instead. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's yeah, yeah. 2 mana, put the bottom creature card from, or reveal the bottom of your library. If it's a creature, put it into play. If it's got power or mana value less than Grenzo's power, whatever. Point is, like, you don't know what that deck does unless you played against it. So I think like those kind of things are, yeah, like those best practice is good. You just have to like, if you're only getting that off meta practice and you're planning on playing in tournaments, you're, yes, that's going to be hard. But I think like getting a mix of that, playing in, and that's honestly why, like the best thing to do is just play in tournaments. But that's like lose, it's fine. Just that's how you get the best practice. That's how I got the best practice for me. I have an awesome LGS. They just host tournaments, and they'd have like $10 buy-in, $20 buy-in, and you just jam 20 of those, and you're gonna you're gonna know a lot about cEDH, right? Like for good and bad players, right? And bad players and asterisks, right? Just like people who don't know what they're doing yet. So
No, that's fair. I think we always say at the end of our episodes, we always say like, go play some cEDH, and I think that that's honestly like true for any
yes,
any activity. Like if whether it's you have a hobby that's like football or basketball, or like for me I like jujitsu, or like Chase is a big like disc golf fan, like stuff like that. I feel like the biggest teacher is just doing the activity. And so we always say like at the end, go play some cEDH, because there's a lot of people that will like they'll say like, I really want to get better at cEDH, and you'll just simply ask that question like, do you play a lot of cEDH? And they'll go, no. And you're like, then start there. Like go play some
yeah, yeah, yeah,
cEDH.
yeah. Every time I do a coaching session, I'm like, yeah, you're not like, no matter what I tell you, if you don't practice, it won't work. 100%.
Chase, do you have any other like fun questions or anything before I actually ask the fun questions that I always like to ask?
I was thinking about this very early on in the podcast episode for tonight. So you did bring up a couple times, like you use the phrase like thinking outside the box whenever it
Yeah.
comes to politicking. Has there Is there like a notable like memory or experience you've had, whatever? It's just like, how do I get out of this? Like almost like a story time with Evan. Like, is there
Yeah.
anything that like like that
Let
where
me
you're just like,
think.
I really had to think outside the box on this one?
I mean, I think Let me think. That's a good question. A lot of times, like thinking outside the box leads thinking outside the box used to be even more like crucial before people learned how to get draws in cEDH, because a lot of times now those things, like, because and I guess in top 16 games that can still totally be the case because there's no draws. And really what I mean by that is like, okay, like I have a counter spell here, and uh I'm losing the game if I cast it. So it's like, and I'm trying to think of a specific example, but like in general, it's like in those situations, you have to be like, okay, time walk yourself for 2 turns because I'm packed in negation and saving us here. That's totally like what I need you to do. I guess, so this isn't exactly politics, but I remember back when docs, the thing that comes to mind, so sorry, I don't have the best politic example off the top of my head, but the one thing that comes to mind is I remember, um, I don't remember exactly the pod, but a player goes, Dockside, I think it was a Gila player, plays Dockside, makes a bunch of mana, doesn't win the game, but goes crazy, maybe gets stopped. I cast Dockside, I'm on Dargo Thrasios, I don't win the game, make a ton of mana, even more, don't win the game. The next player casts Dockside or clones it, makes a ton of mana. And then Atraxa, it was a Atraxa player, they cast Phantasmal Image. And I remember going, and one of the other clones was already Phantasmal Image. So I think I went, I cast a Swords to Plowshares on the first Dockside, killed it, and then I cast it on a Phantasmal Image, and then I cast, so it died off of the trigger. I cast Deflecting Swat on the Swords to Plowshares, directing it to another Dockside, let that resolve, and then I snapped my own Dockside. So the Phantasmal Image just got like stifled by 3 removal spells, and it was just like, Dockside, 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 and then I used triple removal to stop the third one only. And he was like, "Why? You all got one." And
Now
so that, I don't know. That was
that's
thinking outside the box a little bit.
Yeah.
That's
Oh,
awesome.
that was a good memory. I don't think I won the game, but it was a great memory. Just because it came to mind, I'll give you one last little thing. For some reason, I'm only remembering these really good ones from the Dockside era. But I remember back when playing Dargo Thras, people would like be so afraid of feeding your Dockside, like incredibly afraid. So I remember I went Dockside. I won the game with a Dockside for 1 and a Displacer Kitten, because what I ended up doing, I copied a Corvold and I was Displacer Kitten Dockside, and I would just like every non-creature spell would make me 1 mana and draw me 1 card. So I just like manually stormed like my entire deck from a Dockside for 1, and I think that was just like, I was like, wow, this card is broken even if they respect it to like the maximum potential. That felt so good. So anyways, bring back Dockside, please. Unban it.
Hey, don't feel bad. That was one of the things that somebody said earlier was like unban Nadu. We just had that conversation today.
Nadu wasn't the problem, but I'll get my Dockside. I mean, honestly, I'm fine with the bans. I think the one card I'd rather have unbanned is like, either Mana Crypt or Jewel Lotus. Dockside was way too broken. It was just so fun. So balance wise, it was good ban.
Well, this is perfect because I always like to ask people these questions. Anytime we have like a guest on the channel, I ask the same 3 questions because I love to see like how they compare, and I just call them like the fun questions. But the first one's obviously like, what is your favorite? I'm guessing for you, I kind of have an idea, but what's your favorite commander or like favorite deck?
I mean, well, I still think, man, it'd be Dargo Thrasios if there wasn't a Dockside ban. That deck was the most fun ever. That deck was so much more fun than any other deck. But yeah, I mean, right now it's Kinnan. I guess, yeah, obviously. But one deck that I love playing is Shorakai. Like I've mentioned a couple times, that deck is so fun. Because it's played like traditionally like stacks control, but I just kind of play it like a mid-range deck that randomly has these like out of time sweepers that make people cry, and it's great. So
Oh yeah. Now, the second question I always love asking. So now this doesn't have to be like, this isn't like a color pair. So like it's, if you had to build around like one color, so like you can build any color combinations, but like it just has to include this one color forever. You can never not build a deck without this color. What would be the color that you would always have to build around?
Blue.
Okay, there you go.
Ristic study. No, I don't know. I like counter spells and I like drawing cards. Like, yes, it's blue. It's always blue. Every deck I play is blue, pretty much.
Fair enough.
I already do that. That's not even like a challenge. That's just what I do.
I feel like everybody that we've asked that, I think everybody has said blue, but I think Zach, what did he say? Like red? or did he say black? Like he said something different. Like everybody has been like blue, 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 and then he was the first person to like be like, nah, blue, like red. I want to play
I don't
red.
remember. He may have said I don't know. I don't remember off the top of my head. It might be red.
Yeah.
It might be red.
And then
Red might be my second, maybe, because there's you get a lot of cool interaction in red, but blue is so cool.
I tell people every time, like, and this is really bad, but like I don't think now, because I've been ordering Man of All Proxies, I've got like other decks that I can play. But before that, anytime I would like build decks, I'd found myself always building around white. And it is because Chase says that I crutch around the silence effects, because I like just slamming something that says leave me alone and I'm just going to try and win the game. Because like I enjoy like the big stack battles and stuff like that. But I have found that like I get really, really like Tim, like Gold Sabertooth. He was the one that told me this, and the moment he said it, I was like, I'm using that forever. Like I want a T-shirt that says that. But like he called it Esper fatigue, and dude, that is like real. Like I get through like every game goes to time, and you have to just like try to piece together a win in time, and like obviously you're it's not piecing together the win. Like it's pretty easy Thassa consult or like whatever, but it's just the stack battles are always stupid. So like the games where you can just slam an early silence effect and be like, cool, I got there so much easier. Like I just walk around away from those and I'm like, such a breath of fresh air. So I just love, I would, yeah.
I'm the opposite. I don't want to silence. I want to work for it. I want to I want to cast 8 counterspells to back up my win attempt. I don't want the silence. I mean, I think it's more fun, but no, silences are good. But yeah, I literally like again, back to Dark Thrasios. Back in the day, it was like, okay, like you should run, and Kinnan sometimes too, but like, why don't you run like Defense Grid, Dosin? It's like, well, I think if you just build your deck to like present multiple win attempts in a turn, and just have so much backup like through, so it's like all of a sudden you turn your 3 pieces of backup into 6 if you have 3 win attempts that you can cast all in the same turn. Like that is such a fun. That's so fun. Oh, that kind of gameplay is the best. So, yeah, I stand by that.
And then the last question, which you were kind of already answering, but I always like to ask people, if you had to like ban 2 cards and unban 2 cards, what would they be?
Okay, ironically, I'd ban Ristic Study.
Okay.
100% because it's too broken. What I probably still maybe Orcish Bowmasters. I'd ban Orcish Bowmasters and Ristic Study right now. And I'd unban Mana Crypt and Jeweled Lotus. Yeah, easy.
Not Dockside? You wouldn't bring back Dockside? No.
I would love to, but no, I wouldn't. It's just too broken. I would like to play with it, but I do think that is probably better without it. Ugh, I hate to say it.
That's fair. I think that that's super interesting. I think that most people that we've asked have actually said like Jeweled Lotus and like Crypt. I think that those are 2 cards that got hit that people weren't really like nobody was really upset with those specific cards. I think a lot of people were happy to see like Nadu, like see Dockside, like that kind of stuff go. And even me, like I was indifferent to the bans. I just was like, okay, like I've said, as long as my commanders, like as long as Zur is still in the game, I will have a deck that I will play. I don't care if every card in that deck gets banned. I will just build a different version of it. But like I think that would hurt me. So I do feel bad for the people that like they picked up Nadu. They were like, man, I really like this strategy. And then it just like disappeared. I was like, oh, that sucks. But
well, it killed Dargo Thrasios too entirely, because not only was the deck built entirely around Dockside, Jeweled Lotus with Dargo was like one of the most broken things you do. Like you go Greater Good Storm combo, or you just like finding rituals off the top of your deck. Jeweled Lotus wins you the game. So
because JLo, what's 5 mana for Dargo?
It's you just like end up sacking enough that like it basically is 3 Dargo casts, right? So you'll
fuck.
It draws you 21 cards. Yeah, it's nuts.
Yeah, it's busted.
That was the best ever. So, but yeah, I mean, without Dockside, that deck is still. I mean, Jeweled Lotus makes it a little more viable, but yeah, dude, so sad.
I didn't even think of that. That's so crap. So I like we've had Kellen on here, and I started playing like some Dargo Timna, and I just kept thinking, I was like, man, what like I was like, I felt like that, like even though Jeweled Lotus was like, it's good, like I was thinking to myself, I was like, that kind of would suck because you would have to still even though you have like that 3 little bursts of mana to pay for the Dargo, you still need the extra sacks. That way you can get it down to just costing like the red. So it's like, I don't really know how that helps. But then now that you say that, I'm like, oh shit, it makes 3 red mana and you could use, in different iterations. That's
Yeah,
so
you can sack Dargo. Like even in Timna Dargo, you cast Alter what is it? Alter the Wretched, is that what it's called? Whatever,
the
the
black one
black
that's
one
like
that
draw
sacks
7
it
or
to
draw a
draw.
mill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That counts as a sacrifice, so it
Yep.
still costs 1. So you can recast
So
it, and then you cast
dumb.
Culling the Weak, Burnt Offering, and you go crazy. And it's just like boom, 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 and it goes awesome. Yeah, I
Uh,
love that. It's
that's
so fun.
so dumb. Okay, yeah.
And that was the best part about it. Yeah, greater good. Oh, those lines are so good. You just like the rule of thumb was you just like you needed to have like 6 mana, and like with nothing on board except for enough sacks for Dargo. You then all of a sudden you could just like you're gonna realistically like or statistically likely to find enough rituals to just win the game. So even if you find Lion's Eye Diamond, it was Lion's Eye Diamond and Jewel Lotus, both of them give you 21 draw. So you're gonna find enough to do, which is so cool. Like sack, just who cares if you discard your hand? You're drawing 21 more cards. Oh,
So,
that's why that deck is the best.
okay, so I'm curious, and again, like, have you played any of the new like the Dargo Rayhan strategies and stuff that have popped up?
So I mean that deck was still like that was around back then too. But the issue is Jewel Lotus also kind of killed that deck because they had Razaketh lines, and the Razaketh lines were broken because you go. That was the best. That was actually even better than Dargo Thras, I think, in like as far as like the Dargo line there, because you go Dargo, Eldritch or Birthing Pod, whatever, into Razaketh. Then you just need 1 red. You cast Dargo, you sack it, you get Jewel Lotus, all of us, or you get Lion's Eye Diamond. So you get 3 more Dargo casts, and then you just get like Demonic Tutor, Demonic Tutor, Demonic Tutor, Demonic Tutor, and then you win the game. It was so cool. So answer is I haven't played it since the bans, but I did. That deck is really cool. It's like that was like one of the fastest turbo decks. It was arguably faster than Rockside at the time.
Did you got my brain going? Man, okay. I'm very excited. I need to do it. I really need to do a coaching session with you too, because I would love to just yap
Let's
your
do
head
it.
off
I'm
for.
down. I love it.
Oh, Chase, do you have anything else that you want to talk about? Anything you want to mention?
I don't have any more questions. I just appreciate you taking the time tonight and talking with us and talking about politics and Kinnan and apparently Dargo there in the last little bit too, as
I know.
we talk about these Dargo strategies and gave you an opportunity to kind of reminisce on pre-ban Dargo
The good
decks.
old days.
But yeah, absolutely, dude. Like, just we appreciate you coming on here tonight. Is there anything that you want to like talk about or kind of plug again before we end up getting off of here?
Just check out MTG Basics. We're doing lots of content on there and lots of streaming of events. We're trying to do more. So if you're a tournament organizer and want us to stream your event, definitely reach out and we'd be happy to do it. We've done the major events that we've done with a new system that like with the casting and everything has been Frenzy at the Falls and the Top Deck Invitational. So check those out. But yeah, I guess also if you need photography for an event, hit me up. I got you.
Oh yeah, dude. Well, and I guess while I'm kind of thinking about it, like as we're wrapping things up here, I know earlier in the podcast I said to like and subscribe to us. If you're not subscribed to MTG Basics, go ahead and do that too. Like just if you made it this far, you just go over there, do that real quick, come back here, rewatch our video, and help out the algorithm. Drop some comments down below to help with that, and just be supportive. We take a lot of time and effort across all these channels. So just being able to support one another is a really good thing for us to be able to do. Yeah. And just like I said, just kind of wrapping things up again, join our Discords, join our Patreon. The event that I was talking about at the beginning of the episode,
Yes.
is called There's an Ogre in My Taiga. That is the name of this event. I believe it's for Taiga. It's in Paducah, Kentucky, at Wooden Ogre Games. Is kind of the information that I'm looking at here. Yeah, if you're in the area, like if you're in Kentucky, or you could get to Paducah if you're in that kind of part of our state, go to that event. It is proxy friendly. It's one of the few in Kentucky that's actually going to allow proxies. So we're getting somewhere with this. We're finally getting some stores on board. So if you're able to, we might even try to be there. I don't know. It just depends on what we have the weekend. But hey, if we're going to be there, come hang out with us. And go support that store, as they are, again, someone getting on board with proxies. Other than that, I don't think I really have anything else. Blake, you got anything?
Same thing like that you said earlier. I just really appreciate you coming and letting us pick your brain and talk your head off about Magic.
That was a blast. No, I'm so happy to be here. I appreciate you guys.
So yeah, as always, like, subscribe, comment, and
go play some cEDH.
Go play.
do it.
Hell yeah, dude.